Welcome back to another episode of Local Search Tuesdays. This week I'm back with the second half of my presentation on local SEO from last week's Digital Dealer Conference in Florida. Last week I shared the first half of my epic back-to-back double session on local SEO from Digital Dealer. If you didn't watch it, go check it out before you watch this week's episode. It'll make a heck of a lot less sense if you're missing the first half of the presentation. But I don't want to waste any more time getting into it since this one's around 45 minutes long as well. So here we go. I'm going to jump right in where I left off last week. So let's move on and talk about inbound links. These are links pointed from other websites to your dealership website. And we're at about the halfway point. So if you need to take a pause and go get a drink break or head to the restroom, this would be a good spot to do it. But, everybody that's watching this live at Tampa right now, you guys are going to be just stuck. So if you're watching this as a rewatch, this is the point in Tampa where you're like, geez, I wish this guy would take a break and let me go to the bathroom. But virtually, hey, we're just going to power through here. Inbound links from other websites pointed to your site are the most weighted factor in Google's algorithm. That's the most important thing that you can do. Now, back in the day, it was a numbers game. Whoever had the most links pointed at them was the person that was going to win. But Google figured out pretty quickly that that was a pretty easy signal that you could use to game the system. So Google rolled out some updates that made it where the links that point to you need to be relevant to your site. And you know what? We've got a little time here. It's time for a campfire story again. So let's all gather around the campfire so Greg can tell another fun campfire story. Years and years ago, we're talking 2013 probably, when Google first released its link-related penalty update. This was the Penguin update. Just after this update was rolled out, I had a dealership in New Jersey call me and say, hey, I just saw you speak at Digital Dealer. And, something's happened. We're using a really major automotive website or automotive SEO provider, very well-known person doing our SEO. And guess what? We dropped out of search results. In fact, there's only 5 dealerships in our town. So everybody should always be on page 1. And now, even though we used to be number 1 for years, we don't show up at all. In fact, you can Google the specific name of our dealership and we do not show up at all. Something happened. We don't know what's going on. We saw you speak. Can you help us? And I said, this update just happened a month ago. This is probably what it is. Let me do a little research. Went in and did some research. Most dealerships are going to have 20, 30 unique websites sending links to the dealership site. Maybe a bit more. If you've been doing SEO or you've been in business for a long time, you may have up to 100, sometimes maybe even 200 unique websites sending links to your site. This guy had 6,500 unique sites pointing links to him. When we took a look at that analysis, 6,400 of those sites were Russian porn sites, which clearly don't have a reason to link to a car dealership on the East Coast of the US. So what was going on? That SEO provider had been buying links because before this update, that was a totally kind of okay practice. Just go buy a bunch of links and you're going to jump to the top of search results. But they weren't thinking and looking forward. They weren't thinking about the implications of that if Google ever changed how Google looked at links, which Google changed how it looked at links, and now they needed to be relevant. So now you've got 6,400 not relevant sites linking to your dealership site, and you got into a penalty situation. It took us 11 months to get rid of those links and for Google to refresh things and to get that guy's dealership to show up in search results again. You got to be careful with this stuff. But like I mentioned, I didn't mention the number of links pointed to a site. I mentioned the number of sites linking to him, because once you get a link from a website, adding more links from that site has diminishing return. So the first time I get a link from a website, that's great. If I get 1,000 links from that same website, it's not like it's 1,000 times the value. So when you're doing your link analysis, either doing your own internal work or evaluating the work that your vendor is doing for you, you want to look at the number of unique sites sending you links, not your total number of links. And when you're looking at those links or looking at things that you can do to try to acquire more links, it's really important to ask a few questions. Number one, do the links make sense? Is there a reason for the people that are on those other websites to click on that link and come over and see what that link is pointing to on your site? And do they get any additional value from your site? Or is that link just there? And if they click to your site, they're like, oh, I didn't need that, and they go back. The ideal link is something that those users would benefit from when they get to your site and see what's on your site. Acquiring a good, relevant, useful, powerful link, it's really, really hard work. It's a lot of work to do link building. And that's why most SEO agencies, both within automotive and even out in the real world, not real world, out in the world outside of automotive, in any other vertical across the globe, most SEO agencies don't do link acquisition. They don't do link building because it's so hard and there's a lot of effort. Now, every time I've said this in the past, when I've said, yeah, most agencies don't do this, somebody will say, well, I use this really large website provider and I use their SEO service and they do links for me. And I say, okay, cool. Let's pull up your last SEO report. And that SEO report says, this month we got you a link from SEOXYZdirectory.com. Crappy directory links don't count. These are links that you've earned, not links that you went and filled out a form on some directory to get a link pointed back to your site. Those don't count. Google understands all you did was fill out a form. Google wants to see links that you earned. And more importantly, because it's local SEO, Google wants those links to come from local entities. So local businesses, local websites that are in the same vicinity as your dealership. Those carry a lot of value. And you're probably going, okay, Greg, we've heard you talk about this a million times before. Like, how do we actually get these links? What do we do? The easiest way is actually marketing coming full circle. All the things that dealers used to do before the internet to get more visibility in the local area is the same things you do now to get awesome local links. It's the old school, grassroots, real world marketing tactics. Going out, getting involved in the community, that makes it really easy to get links. It's also just good marketing for your dealership. And links are usually a lot easier for car dealers than a lot of the other verticals and a lot of the other places I'm doing conferences, the people that I'm talking to, because most dealers are typically really involved in the community already and really philanthropically focused, which means you're doing things already that can result in links. You're just not doing the follow through. You don't have anybody handling the follow through for you. So think about it. You can take advantage of relationships that already exist at the dealership, people that you've known for years and years and years, and things that you've been doing. So look at those things that you're already doing. You're already sponsoring golf tournaments, maybe not right now because of COVID, but you're already sponsoring golf tournaments and 5Ks and little league teams and highway cleanup and things like that. Those are all really easy ways to get really killer local links. So I'm going to run you through some ideas and talk about some specific tactics that you can use, whether you're doing your own SEO or whether you've got a vendor partner that you work with that might be doing link building for you or not. These are some great ideas of things that you can do where you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And you can handle it yourself and nab some really awesome links. Local sponsorships are really easy. Now, Google doesn't want you buying links. We already talked about that, but Google's totally okay with you buying a sponsorship that results in a link. So like I said, 5Ks, golf tournaments, anything like that. Little league teams are great. Couple $100 gets your dealership name and logo on the jersey. It's a warm, fuzzy feel good for the community, but you get a killer local link, both from that local team and from the league website. So it can be really cool. So find those sponsorships. Local meetups are great too. You can use the site. Oh, we like to use meetup.com, but there's a lot of different meetup type sites, but there's a couple of strategies that you can do here as dealership. Number one, you've got a service waiting area, nice couches, nice chairs, TV, Wi-Fi, whatever, that you don't use at night because your service department probably closes at 6 or 7 every night, but sales is open until 9. So you've got a couple of hour window in there where you're just not using that. So if there's a smaller local group that has a regular meeting like the first Monday of every month, and you can offer that service waiting lounge to that group, you're going to get a really powerful link from both meetup.com and that group's website for offering a free place to have their meeting. You already got comfy places to sit and TV they can do their presentations on and Wi-Fi. It's super easy. Or if you don't have that or you don't want to do that, look for groups that are looking for sponsors. You can throw in $50, $60 a month, buy their pizza and their Cokes. You get some killer links out of it. Local blogs are great too. Find ways to get local bloggers to write about your dealership. Even if the post says, hey, Greg Gifford Ford gave me a free oil change to write about my experience going through their service lane. Who cares? You're still getting an awesome link out of it, so do that. Now, this one's a little bit of a different take. We're not talking about the clubs and organizations that the dealership belongs to. We're talking about what your staff does in their free time, what they're passionate about that they want to spend their own time off the clock doing. So, for example, if somebody's super involved at their church, probably going to be able to get a link that way. If you got somebody that is the president of the local Corvette car club, maybe kind of tied to the dealership a little bit, but doesn't happen on the dealership's dime, great thing there. You got parents that are parents of kids that are on a club soccer team that travels all over the US and whoops other soccer teams. Great way to get links there. So talk to your staff, especially management, about what they do in their free time, what they're passionate about. A lot of times you can get really cool links that get you more exposure in different areas that way. Join all the local business associations you can. Better Business Bureau is a really great link to get. And sure, you got to spend a couple $100 a month or a couple $100 a year to be on that list. But hey, you know what? It's totally worth it to get a great link. And again, old school marketing gets you more exposure in the real world. This is a secret sauce thing that I've only been talking about the last few digital dealers, because originally we didn't want to talk about it because, you know, competitors will listen to this, see what we're doing, and they'll steal the idea. But it turns out that a lot of neighborhood watch groups and crime watch groups lately will have somebody in the neighborhood that's like, oh, I can do WordPress. Let's have a WordPress site. And then they don't have anything to put on the site. So if you can give them something of value, you'll get an awesome link out of it that's relevant down to a neighborhood level. Now, originally we did this for SEO, but lately we've been doing this because you get crazy referral traffic because these people are on there gossiping and checking out what's going on in the neighborhood. You know, Susie just put up a treehouse that's 5 inches above the top of their fence, and that's against homeowner associations. And like, oh my God, what's going to happen there? You get on those sites, it's awesome. Originally, we were giving out dealership swag. Now it's just like, hey, we got a secret special for everybody in this neighborhood. You get an extra $5 off an oil change, and it's secretly stackable. So if there's some other oil change special that's like a $39.99 oil change special, can't be combined with any other offer. If you live in this neighborhood, you get another $5 off. Not only do you get conversions directly off of that offer, you get a killer local link, and you'll get a ton of referral traffic to the site. So it's really killer. Child seat installation is another cool one. Now, I've mentioned this in other presentations in the past, but it really makes sense to dealerships because people are already bringing their cars in for service anyway. And it turns out most people don't know how to correctly install their child seat, their baby seat in their car. So you can have your service staff or your sales staff or 1 or 2 people on staff, whatever it might be, sit through a training class. Now, it is a 2-day training class, so it's pretty long, but you can get the information here at this website. But you sit through the training class. Once you're certified, you can get listed on multiple national and state level and even regional level safety websites as a place that anyone in the community can come and bring their child seat in their car and get their child seat installed for free and be shown how to install it correctly for free. Makes a whole lot of sense for you to do it. Doesn't really make sense for a dry cleaner to do that sort of thing. Makes sense for dealers and also gets more people exposed to dealerships. So it's a killer idea. You can also do Google searches. So come up with your own list of keywords and then just throw your city name in and keep this. And every couple of months when you're doing your research on what to do links, just throw these in and Google's going to give you a bunch of lists of search results of things that could be opportunities for link building for you. Now notice the ones in blue have in URL colon and then a phrase. That's what's called a search operator. It's like a search filter where you can use this to filter and kind of hone in on specific search results. So in this case, you would say Dallas in URL sponsorships. What that's going to do is look for a website that is Dallas based, but then in the actual URL of a page, it includes the word sponsorships, because if they're offering sponsorships, they're going to use sponsorships or sponsors or sponsor us. Really cool kind of advanced level Google tip there. So use that. It's really cool. Another thing you can do, use our link building questionnaire. Every time we onboard a new dealer, we have this pretty extensive link building questionnaire that goes through a lot of this. What are things that you've done in the past? What are things that you're doing right now? You can download this, use it right now. I don't care. I want to help. So go to this link. You don't even have to enter your email address. It's a direct download of the Word document file. That's a bunch of questions that will help you see things that you've already done or things that you're already doing that could be link opportunities and help prioritize your direction moving forward of things that you could do. Big mistake a lot of people make that I want to warn you away from. Don't point all of your inbound links to your homepage. A lot of times when you're working on link building and you're talking to that sponsor or you're talking to that meetup group, you're just like, oh yeah, link to giffordford.com. No, don't point all your links to your homepage. You're naturally going to get a lot of links to your homepage. If you want your internal pages to rank better, point a few links there. Like we talked about how a lot of dealerships don't have fixed ops content. Let's say now you've got a really killer oil change page and you want to rank better for oil changes in your area. If you get just a couple of inbound links pointed directly to that oil change page, boom. You're going to see crazy big differences. And you don't want to forget about internal links, how you link from page to page inside of your own site. Again, Google's like a child. You kind of have to hold Google's hand. The way that you link internally in your own site from page to page is a huge signal to Google of which pages you think are the most important and most beneficial pages on your site. Your link structure of your internal links, if you kind of graph them all out, it should look like a pyramid where you have your home page and then links to a few primary pages that then link down to detail pages that link down to even more detailed pages. So it should look like a pyramid, kind of like this. This works great because if we think about a dealership site, there's really only three things people are going to need to do when they come to your site. They're buying a car, they're getting service, or they're buying parts. So one of those three directions. Once they go down that path of I'm buying a car, they don't need to see service related content. They need to see car buying content. Once they go down the service path, they don't need to see car buying content. Now, sure, we all know you can maybe cross-sell somebody that's servicing an old car to buy a new car or whatever, but in the user journey on the site, it doesn't make sense if I'm starting to go into the service section and you're popping up stuff about buy a new F-150. So make sure those links make sense and that you're pointing all the links in the right place. Don't be one of those dealers that says, I need to link to everything on my site off of the home page so that the customer can find whatever they need. Realistically, on your home page, you need 3 links. Buy a car, or 4 maybe. Buy a new car, buy a used car, buy parts, get service. That's really all you need. You don't need to have a link to every individual model and all those other crazy things that a lot of dealers like to do. So let's move on. Let's talk about customer reviews, the reviews that are coming in about your dealership from the customers that have done business with you. Obviously, reviews are really important for attracting new customers. Word of mouth, it's always been an important customer referral thing to get great reviews. We all know that. But Google's local algorithm also looks at reviews, and reviews are heavily weighted in Google's local algorithm. I guess I should have taken a break a minute ago too, right? Now, a big thing a lot of dealers and a lot of businesses worldwide freak out over is the first time you get that review that's not a perfect 5 and you for years have had a perfect score and now you've got a 4.9 and you lose your mind. Don't freak out. It's actually better to not have a perfect score. Watch this video. It talks about a lot of studies that have been done. People don't trust a perfect 5.0 score. They think it's manufactured and that your reviews are fake. You are much more likely to convert customers and have people call you or come to your website and fill out a form if your review score falls between 4.3 and 4.6 or maybe a 4.7. People don't trust a 5.0 score. Think about it. If your dealership has 1,300 reviews and you've got a perfect score, that means nobody ever left you a bad review. It's not realistic. Everybody knows there's trolls out there. Everybody knows that sometimes people are just grumpy, and everybody knows sometimes people make mistakes. It happens. Bad reviews actually humanize you and make you look more real. And so, like I said, studies have shown that the ideal score is somewhere between 4.3 and 4.6. And stop worrying so much about the testimonials page on your website. Dealers love to do this. Businesses love to do this. Hey, here's my testimonials. Read all I've got 500 testimonials on this page. Well, guess what? Does anybody read that page? No. Look at your analytics. 0 traffic. Except for your own internal traffic of when your sales team is pulling it up going, look at our testimonials page with 500 testimonials. Because guess what? Every customer knows that you're only putting glowing 5-star reviews that say how amazing you are on that page. People don't care. People want to see the reviews that you have on non-biased third-party sites, not testimonials that you've gathered that you're putting on your own site and you're not putting up anything that says, hey, these guys suck. Here's what happened. You've got to have real reviews on third-party sites. Watch this video. It goes more detail. So what you need to do is you need to be proactive. You need to have a review process in place that makes it easy for customers to leave a review, that you outreach and make sure that they're doing that review, and that you follow up to make sure that you get those reviews and that you're asking every single customer. So watch this review process video. It walks you through the whole process. Summarizing TLDR version, you need to make it easy for customers to leave a review. Don't say, leave me a review on Google and hope that they know how to do it. Have a direct link that lets them leave that review. And make sure you ask every single customer. We like to set up a reviews page. So dealership.com/reviews. So everybody at the dealership knows where to tell people to go if they want to leave a review. And it's easier for customers to remember and type in. That page has a simple thank you message. Thanks for doing business with us today. We'd love to know how your experience went. Please leave a review on one of the following platforms, and then you link to all of your possible review platforms so they can choose where they want to leave that review. Then you can even include a link to that page in any emails that go out. Hey, if you bought from us recently, do this. You know, you're sending out an email after somebody buys anyway, and you can say, hey, we'd love to hear how it went. Go leave us a review here. You link to that page and then let them choose where to go. Now, keep in mind, you want to have more reviews than your competitors because that's an important part of the signal to Google. You want to have awesome reviews. You want to have more than your competitors, but you don't want to have too many more. It looks fake. One time I was talking to a dealership in like Atlanta, and they had like 1,500 reviews, which was great. And they were legit. They were all good. And it was like a 4.6 score. They were all real reviews, but they did a really good job of asking every single customer and really pushing that review process. The problem is in that market, nobody else did. So most other dealerships were in the range of like 100 to 150, and a lot of them were even below 100. So as a customer, if you're looking at where am I going to buy a car, and I'm not sure specifically what I want to buy, or maybe I'm looking for a used car or whatever, you're looking at the reviews and everybody's in the like 80 to 150 range, and this dealership's got 1,500. Human nature is you're going to be like, oh, that guy's faking his reviews. So it doesn't help on a human side to just blow your competitors out of the water and have like 5 times as many reviews. Plus, from an algorithmic standpoint, as what signal Google is looking at, once you have more than competitors, getting more, there's not really any return from that in the algorithm. It's not like if you've got 100 more than your competitors, that's not as good as having 1,000 more than your competitors. It doesn't really matter once you've got more. Here's a big thing that's really important. If a customer leaves a review for the dealership and in that review includes keywords, those keywords will help you rank for searches, including those keywords. I know it's kind of a convoluted way, but let's say I came to a Ford dealership in Dallas. And I went to that Ford dealership, but I bought a used car from that dealership. And so in my review, I say, hey, I don't even live in Dallas. I drove down to this dealership because they had the best deal on this used F-150 of anybody in town. Now, because I said used F-150 in that review, they're more likely to show up for people that are looking for used F-150. So if they say, used car, oil change for a service review, anything like that, that will help you show up better. So watch this video. It walks you through all the important elements of this, but most importantly, do not tell customers what to write. That's a violation of Google's policies, and it actually kind of skirts the law on FTC federal level law of what you can do with customer reviews. You can't tell them what to write, but there's a cool Jedi mind trick that I share in this video. You can share suggestions on that reviews page. When you're saying, hey, leave me a review, go to this page. On that page, you can have a message like, hey, if you're not sure what to write, the best reviews offer specific details and helpful tips to future customers. Here's some questions to think about while you're writing your review. Did you buy a new car or a used car? Boom, right there, it's going to be in their head that if they bought a new car, they're going to be like, I bought a new F-150, or I bought a used F-150. Or what city do you live in? Hey, I live in Allen, but I drove all the way down to Dallas to buy this car. How do we do? Oh man, the experience was amazing. It was the best dealer in town. Now you're showing up for best. Was there somebody on the team that helped you? Yeah, my sales guy was John. John was amazing. Now, you don't have to have first and last name. That's not natural, but you don't want to tell them to put a sales guy in every review because that's not natural either. But asking these questions kind of Jedi mind tricks into using some of those phrases, and it really helps. Don't worry about your responses. The keywords in your responses as the business owner don't matter for ranking. You want to make sure you answer every single review. Watch this video. If nothing else, you watch none of the videos, watch this one. You can see there in the thumbnail, it's really funny. I talk about how you don't want to answer a bad review quickly. You want to cool off first because most people answer it and they're all kind of steamed up. And I do the whole thing where I go, and my face turns red and smoke comes out of my ears, and it does the whole cartoon like work whistle thing. It's really funny. And I worked really hard on the effects. So please go watch it to validate my feelings as a video editor. But anyway, the important thing is you want to answer every review, not just the positive reviews. You really need to answer the negative reviews, but you need to answer the positive ones too, because every time the business responds to a review, it sends a message to that reviewer. So if somebody leaves you a good review and then you go and leave a response that thanks them, it's a reinforcement and more of a warm fuzzy for the person that left that review. When you're responding to bad reviews, be honest. If you drop the ball and you screwed up, be honest about it. You know what? Hey, we screwed up, but here's what we're doing to make this right. Don't lie, and make sure you're responding to the actual situation. So many dealers and so many reputation management providers in automotive put the same default answer up to every bad review. Hey, we strive to give great customer service, and we're sorry we didn't live up to your expectations. I'm Jim, the service manager. Please call me at 214-555-5321 or whatever your number is. But the same message every time. Hey, I'm Jim, the general manager. Call me. That doesn't work. You need to realize that when you're writing a response to a negative review, your response is not for the person that left the review. You've got their information in the system. You should be reaching out to them in the real world going, man, I saw this bad review. What can we do to fix this for you? The answer that you're putting to that review is for every potential customer from this point on that's reading your customer reviews and sees that bad review, and they want to see what happened in that situation and saying, hey, I'm Jim, general manager, call me. That does not tell them what happened in that situation. When they see that same answer to every bad review, that makes it look like you're lazy and you don't care. But if you come back and go, hey, Mr. Gifford, if you remember, we talked to you on the phone, we're sorry we knocked the door of your car off in our service lane, but we replaced it free of charge. We gave you a loaner vehicle in the meantime, and we gave you 50% off every service for the next year, whatever it is that you did, and say, here's what we did to fix this situation. We're sorry we screwed up. Boom. Or, hey, you left this bad review, but you left out the fact that this happened and this happened and this happened. And, we tried to make the situation right and whatever. You can be honest without being catty, but real responses to the situation are always better. Now, if you've got fake reviews, something that's just completely fake and bogus and isn't a real situation, or a review from somebody that wasn't a customer because you're collecting customer from, they're like, we came in and talked to the sales guy. Okay, well, that couldn't happen because you would have had their information. Here's the bad thing. Google's probably not going to remove those reviews. It's a real problem with Google really kind of siding on the side of the reviewer and not the side of the business. Because if you think about it, sure, maybe it really is legitimately a fake review and that person wasn't a customer. But if all you had to do was tell Google, hey, I keep really good records and I have everybody's info and this wasn't a real customer, so will you take this bad review down? And Google took it down, then all any business would have to do is say, well, this isn't a real situation, take the review down, and Google would take it down. So instead, they have to draw the line of, unless it violates one of Google's policies, that review is probably not going to get removed. So what you need to do is leave a strategic response. So there's a video here that talks about what that strategic response is. In most cases, it's going to be, hey, look, we keep really great records and we've gone through our records and we have no record of your name and nobody even remembers anything related to a situation like this. So we're not sure why you left a false review, but if you really have an issue with us, please call us and we'd love to talk to you about how we can make that situation better. That way, anybody reading that review is going to go, oh, this is probably a fake review, and they're not going to pay attention. And Yelp is important too. And everybody's probably groaning. We all agree, Yelp sucks. Yelp's the devil. It's awful to deal with, but unfortunately you can't ignore it. Because anytime somebody pulls out an iPhone and does a direction search on Apple Maps, the stars that show up on Apple Maps come from Yelp, not from Google, because Apple and Google, they're not really big fans of each other. So what you don't want is a situation like this where you got a whole bunch of reviews and a pretty good review score on Google, and then somebody looks you up on Yelp to get directions to come in for that oil change, and they see you got a 1.5 star rating. Pretty good chance that customer is going to maybe decide, ooh, maybe this isn't where I want to go. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to Yelp so that you can have good review stars and scores on Apple Maps. Another big frustrating thing with Yelp. How many of you are frustrated about the fact that Yelp mostly shows bad reviews and doesn't show all those positive reviews that if you scroll down, it says there are 58 reviews that did not meet Yelp standards and aren't counted? Okay, well, great. Why are you filtering out all these positive reviews? Realistically, what it is, Yelp only wants to count reviews from what it considers to be Yelp users. So if somebody leaves a review on you for Yelp and they have never used Yelp before and they never use it again, that review is probably going to get filtered out because Yelp doesn't consider them to be a Yelp user. So I did a video here about a pretty simple tactic that you can use to contact those people, ask them to do some other things that will then make Yelp think that they're a Yelp user, and boom, that review pops out of the filter, starts getting counted towards your score. So it ups your score, gets you more reviews without actually having to get new reviews written. So I want to finish up. Google My Business is absolutely huge. In fact, Google My Business is so big that George Nenny is doing an entire double presentation here at Digital Dealer just talking about Google My Business. Google My Business is pretty much the basis of local SEO. It's what allows you to show up in Google Map searches, and it's what shows up when you show up as a map pack result or on the local finder page. And pretty much your Google My Business listing is your dealership's new homepage. Those of you that have been in the auto business long enough to remember when we all first started getting websites, it was a whole situation of you got to have an awesome website because that's your digital showroom. It's the first impression you're going to make with potential customers. That's not true anymore. Google My Business is the first impression you make with new customers now. If somebody needs your phone number, they don't have to go to your website to get it. They Google you they do a Google search for you, and they're going to call the number that's right there in your Google My Business profile. They can get your address. They can get directions. They can see photos of the dealership. They can read your reviews. They can see your Google posts. They can read the questions and answer section. There's so much that they can do in that Google My Business profile now that's the true homepage of your dealership, because it's the first impression you're going to make for anybody that's looking for you, whether they're looking for you by name or whether they're stumbling across you in a Google search for a phrase like Ford dealer or something like that. So it's the first impression that you make. You need to put a lot of effort into making sure it's an awesome first impression so that you'll attract those customers. You want to make sure you fill out everything. Every single thing in there has to get filled out. And you want to make sure that you're including UTM tracking on your website link. So when you put your website link in, you're going to add UTM tracking. You add this at the end of the website link, dealership.com, question mark, UTM underscore source equals GMB listing, ampersand UTM underscore medium equals organic. On mobile searches on these devices, which we've already talked about multiple times being a significant part or the majority of the traffic coming to your website, mobile browsers do not pass referral information a lot of the times to Google Analytics. Now, a lot of people have been told that in Google Analytics, the direct source means someone's typing your URL in directly or using a bookmark. That's not entirely true. Really, the direct source in Google Analytics is Google's black hole of, oh crap, I don't know a referral source for this traffic, so we're just going to call it direct because there is no referral source. Doesn't mean they're not a referral source. So a lot of the traffic that's attributed as direct in Google Analytics is actually organic traffic from mobile devices. So when you use this on the URL on your GMB listing, anybody that clicks that URL on a mobile device, it will now force Google Analytics to attribute it as GMB listing and medium organic. So watch the video. It walks you through how to build this and why it's all important. One thing that I want to point out, people have been talking about this for a few years. A lot of people will suggest that you use Google for the source and organic for the medium. Now, it's important to leave organic as the medium, because if someone's in analytics and they want to look at the channel report, it's still going to be included in your organic channel. But it's better to not use Google as the source, because if you use Google at the source, you then have to go to the campaign variable and add a campaign variable that says GMB. But if you put GMB or GMB listing as the source instead of Google, now when you go to your source medium report, immediately it is 100% evident which traffic came to you because they clicked on your Google My Business listing or because they clicked on a regular Google, 10 blue link to your dealership. If you do it as a campaign variable instead, you're just adding extra clicks every time that you want to go analyze stuff in analytics, because you can't just look at source medium, or you can't just look at source. You have to go in and look at source medium and then add in a secondary dimension of the campaign variable. So it's better to separate those out because it's two totally different kinds of organic traffic. You want to make sure it's not just the website link, but all links that you share on GMB. So if you've got an appointments link that links to your service scheduler, you want to make sure you've got UTM tracking on that too. That's a big mistake a lot of dealerships make. They've heard the UTM thing a lot. I've been talking about it for years. So they'll put it on their main website link, but they'll have an appointments link or some other link on there, and they won't include the UTM tracking there. So you want to make sure that you've got it included everywhere. Even when you're doing Google posts, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, you want to use UTM tracking on the Google posts as well so that you can track performance and see what's working. So make sure you're using the UTM tracking on all links, not just the main website link. You want to make sure you're listing a local phone number. It is a really big signal to Google's algorithm that you've got a local area code phone number listed in your Google My Business listing. And that should be the local phone number that rings through directly to the dealership. But while in the past, I would have said, don't use call tracking, it's bad. Google has updated the rules or the way that the algorithm looks at things. And it is now totally okay. In fact, it's best practice to use a call tracking number. You're either a marketing person or an in-house person that's doing your own SEO, or you've got a vendor that you want to hold accountable for their work. Either way, you want to know this phone call came from Google My Business, from an organic search, whether they're looking for the dealership by name or they stumbled across us some other way. You want to know that that's an organic phone call. You're not going to know that if you're just using a regular phone number. So use a call tracking number. Now, ideally, it should be a call tracking number with a local area code as well. Nobody needs 800 numbers anymore, but even if it is an 800 number, what you do is you put your tracking number in the primary slot. So that's the number that shows to the public, but you have two alternate phone number slots inside of Google My Business. You want to put your actual local phone number in an alternate slot so that Google sees that as part of the signal and also sees consistency with all of your other listings online with that local phone number. Really important there. You want to make sure you've listed your correct sales hours. And I know some of you are like, geez, this is so basic 101. But you know what's scary? There's tons of dealerships that set it up and then they never came back and updated it. And it's completely wrong. You want to make sure your correct hours are listed. It's really important. What you don't want is to open yourself up to bad reviews because a customer shows up and it says, well, the dealership says they're open till 9, but now they're closed at 7 because of reduced hours of COVID. So you want to be careful there. If you offer alternate service hours, so different types of service like senior only shopping hours or things like that, there's a new widget that has been rolled out in the last year called More Hours. There's a video there that walks you through it. Please go watch this. This can be really beneficial for dealerships because it will now break down and show more than one set of hours. So if I'm looking at the hours, it'll show hours for sales, and then it's going to show hours for delivery, hours for pickup, hours for seniors, or whatever it would be. So these are the options that you have. Obviously, brunch doesn't apply to your dealership, but delivery, drive-through, kitchen, happy hours doesn't matter. Online service hours, pickup, seniors. Those are really important things you could add, especially delivery and pickup if you're talking about service. That could be really cool and beneficial to showcase in that first impression on Google My Business. You want to make sure you're uploading lots of high quality photos and you want to make sure you're updating them often. One thing that I always suggest is if you're up north where you get snow in the winter, but you're sunny and nice in the summer, upload photos that show the outside of the dealership with both. Customers don't care in the winter if you've got a photo of the dealership in the summer with no snow on the cars. It's actually more realistic to have both. Hey, here's what it looks like in the summer, but hey, if you're coming in the winter, it's going to look like this. It's better. It shows seasonality. It shows people a real view of what's going on. And another thing is Google will show customer photos that have been uploaded from their phones that they tag in reviews or tag as being at that location. To outpace those, to have a better chance of your uploaded photos showing up, don't use iPhone photos. Use professional shot images from a DSLR camera. Now, keep in mind, photos are a conversion factor. It's not a ranking factor. So I'm not telling you to do this because it's going to help you rank better. I'm telling you to do this because it's going to help you convert more people and get you more business. So you want to make sure you're uploading those, and I'm driving this home again. It's so important. Professionally shot, high resolution photos from a real camera, not iPhone photos. And some ideas of things to upload. You want to upload photos that show your identity, why you're a cool place to buy, why you're a fun place to be, why it's why you stand out from competitors. Upload photos that show the inside of the dealership. You want to let people know what it's going to look like when they're inside and that you're not some shabby, gross, 30-year-old building. You want to upload photos that show your exterior. I already talked about how you want to change those out in the various seasons. The exterior shot is typically what Google's going to choose to show as your primary image. So you want to have a nice one uploaded there. And upload photos of your team. It doesn't have to be something where it's every single salesperson or every single service tech, but upload photos that just show people in the dealership. So it's not just empty dealership. General manager photo is always a great thing to have there too. And then when you're filling out the profile, make sure you choose the right categories. The categories that you choose have a massive influence on which searches you're going to show up as a search result for. You can list up to 10 categories, but there are way more than 10 relevant categories that you could use. What's really important to understand with the category side of things is whatever you choose as your first category, your primary category, it carries more weight in Google's algorithm. So you're more likely to show up. It carries more value with whatever you've chosen as your first category. So you want to be strategic. Please go watch this video. I can't drive home enough how important this particular concept is. TLDR version of this video, you want to be strategic because let's say I'm a Ford dealership. If I'm in Dallas, there's 20 Ford dealerships in this market. I'm going to compete the most on, I want to sell an F-150 against all these other dealers. I need to put Ford dealer as my primary category. This dealer is in, somebody's going to know. I want to say this was like Iowa or somewhere. I don't even remember. But this dealership doesn't have another dealership for like 50, 60 miles in any direction. And the only one that's there is that Clinton, which doesn't have another one for like 40 or 50 miles in any direction. Fairway Ford in this situation doesn't need to put Ford dealer as their primary category because for a big radius, they're going to show number one every time because they're the only viable local option. In this case, Fairway Ford would want to put used car dealer as their primary category because there's other brands that are in this market. around their local area. And there's all the independents that they're competing against. That's their primary area of focus because that's what they fight against the most. They don't have to fight to sell Ford. So you want to be strategic there. And it's really important. Google has updated the rules specifically for car dealers several times in the last year and a half. The biggest rule update is that Google allows dealerships to have separate departments for the separate business areas, even though you might be housed all in one building. Typically, the rules say that you have to have a separate entrance with permanent signage and separate staff that are on your payroll to be eligible to have a separate Google My Business listing. But for dealerships, they understand the business model is a little different than a traditional brick and mortar business. So dealerships are allowed to have the primary GMB is what you would consider to be your sales focused GMB. Then you can have a separate listing for parts and a separate listing for service. And then they're nested as departments in that main listing. Watch this video. It walks you through how to set them up and why they're important. Most importantly, in the main listing, it will show that you have explicitly those departments, which they can click on and then see that department listing. Even better, we have all had problems for years for customers that are like, oh, it says they're open till 9, but I called and the service department closes at 6. Usually it's going to say, here's your hours. Now notice how it shows. The hours are open and it closes at 8 p.m., but the auto repair shop is open and it closes at 5:30. And then instead of just having a drop down that shows the rest of the hours, it will say more hours. And when you click that, it will say, like it does on the right there, here's the main listing, here's the parts department hours, here's the service department hours. It is so much better for customers. And it's actually better for the dealership because now you've got a listing that is completely dedicated to service that will make it more likely that you will show up in service-related searches instead of having one single listing with a bunch of different categories. Keep in mind when you're selecting categories between these individual department listings, you can't have overlap, which means your primary listing needs all the sales dealership-focused categories. Your service listing needs all of the service-related categories. The parts listing needs all the parts-related categories. You can't have the same category across all three, or you're not going to be as visible. So watch this video. Also below all my videos, there's a transcript of the video, but specifically below this one, you want to go look at the list because I basically bullet point list. I know I killed some kittens. I bullet point out all the categories that you need to pick for sales and for parts and for service. So there's no guesswork. It's really easy. Just go, oh, okay, cool. Cut and paste these 10. This is what I need to use. I've made it really easy for you. Also, Google rolled out a rule change last year in 2020 that now allows you a separate Google My Business department listing for every brand that you sell, which sounds crazy and different and amazing, but realistically, this only matters for GM and FCA / now calling Stellantis dealers. If you're a BMW dealer, you can't say, oh, well, I have a bunch of used cars, so I'm going to put a different listing for each one. It doesn't work that way. It's only talking about new cars. In fact, you're not allowed to have a used car department listing. Your sales department is all you can have. But if you're GM or if you're Stellantis, you can now, let's say I'm Huffines, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Plano. I can have my main listing that has my hours of there. Then I can have a Chrysler dealer listing, a Jeep dealer listing, a Dodge dealer listing, a Ram dealer listing, and a Fiat dealer listing if you're one of those that has Fiat included as well. All listed as departments under the main dealership. Now, do you want to do that? That's another question. It's a lot to keep up with. It's a lot of extra to do. But if you're in a really crowded market and you're the first guy that's got a dedicated listing just to be a Jeep dealer, you're probably going to see a lot of benefit from that. But keep in mind, I just said it, I want to drive it home again. You are not allowed to have a used car department listing. That doesn't mean Google's not going to let you set it up, but keep in mind that you're going to put effort into it. And then at some point, Google's going to find out that you have it, or somebody's going to report that you have it, and it's going to go away and you won't be able to get it back. It's against compliance rules. So you cannot have a separate used car department listing. And if there's any independents watching this, you can only have your one listing. You're not allowed to have department listings as an independent. If you are having problems with setting up, or you've already got them set up and they're not nesting correctly or they're not displaying correctly. Last year in 2020, there was a big bug where you'd search for your dealership name, but your service department listing would show up instead of the main Google My Business listing. Any kind of problems with that sort of stuff, GMB support is not probably going to be your best route to go for help. GMB support has to support every business in the entire world, so they don't really know by rote all of the weird, quirky rules that are for one specific vertical. So most of the support staff isn't even going to realize that you're allowed to have these department listings. And they'll in fact go in and say, you're not allowed to have this listing. We're going to go ahead and delete it. And you're like, whoa, 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 hold on. Don't do that. Right. The other problem is they're not always aware of the way that things should work. So you don't want to go to support, and it's not their fault. That's a whole lot to know. They're trying to serve GMB for the whole world. Right. So a better route to go is there is a community forum called and actually Google has one for every product, but there's actually one for Google My Business. So it's the Google My Business Community Forum. You can go put a post on this forum and people will come in and answer that post. Now it's not staffed by Google employees, it's staffed by volunteers. But with this community forum, as a volunteer, you're coming in and answering questions because you know the answers to these things and you can help. At a certain point, once you've answered enough questions consistently and well, and you're helpful, then you get invited to be in what's called Google's Product Expert program. And there's multiple levels of product expert, but these product experts actually have a special kind of ability to escalate these cases directly to internal Google support. So if you guys are having problems with this nesting thing, you could go to the GMB forum. There's a link there to make it easy because it's a weird URL. Go create a new post. List out all the details. Here's what's wrong. Here's what I need. Here's what support told me, but I know that's not right. Please help me. One of those product experts can then escalate that post internally to Google product support in GMB, and you can get that problem fixed. So that's really cool. And actually, I just got elevated into what's called the gold level of that product expert forum, which is actually really cool. So, you know, I could be one of the people that might potentially be escalating your stuff for you. You should always, always, always be using Google Posts. Google Posts are amazing. They came out a couple of years ago, and then they got moved down to the bottom of your GMB profile on desktop. So a lot of dealers and a lot of businesses are like, oh, it's at the bottom now. I don't care. You should definitely be using them. Most of you are probably familiar with a company called Moz. They're an SEO tool set. And for years and years and years, they've had a video series called Whiteboard Friday. I did a Whiteboard Friday a few months ago, all about Google Posts. So if you go to this URL, you can watch that whole video. It's like 11 or 12 minutes long, packed with information really specifically about Google Posts. And I knew I was going to be running out of time here. I couldn't spend 15 minutes talking about this. So watch the video. I'm going to hit a couple of high points, but then we got to move on and talk about questions and answers because that's huge too. But the big thing about posts is they're basically free advertising. It's an ad that you can set up that shows up in your profile. And on mobile, when you're scrolling through search results, the posts are just mixed in with the regular search results. So it's really powerful. It's really cool. Now, the full post, once they click on that thumbnail and it pulls up the full post, has an image and up to 1,500 characters. So most people are only worried about here's what my image is and here's what I'm writing out in this big long post. But that actually doesn't matter. The success of a Google post has nothing to do with that content that you're putting in that full post. And this is where most of the people out there get this really wrong. What matters is what shows in that thumbnail. So the cropped in image and the couple of lines of text that shows in the thumbnail, that's what matters. Because if you don't have something enticing there, nobody's going to click on it, and it doesn't matter what's in your full post. You're not going to see any results because nobody's clicking on that thumbnail. So it's important to understand the various post templates that you can use. The main one most people use is called the add update post. So once you add a call to action, and let's face it, you're going to want to put a call to action. You're going to want to have a link that links to whatever you're talking about on your website on every post. Otherwise, why are you doing them? This isn't like Facebook where you can just share social fluff. This needs to be promotionally focused. So you always want that call to action link. That's going to replace the final line in each one of these. So the add update post will give you the thumbnail image, then 3 lines of text, and then your link. You can also do an event post. Now, this post will stay up for 6 months. They've changed it. It used to be 7 days, but the add update post will stay live where people can see it for 6 months now. If you do an event post, you get a separate title line. You get the second line shows the date range, and then you'll get 1 line of description and then your link. Now, obviously, if they click it, they'll see the full description. But again, remember, we're only worried about what's in the thumbnail. You get 1 line, but whatever is in the date range, that's how long the post is visible. After the date range, that post is no longer visible. You can also do an offer post, which a lot of people like because you get the little price tag emoji, and it shows, hey, this is a promotion. This is a special. Here's an oil change coupon or whatever. The offer post, same thing. You get 1 line for a title plus the price tag emoji. You get 1 line for the date range. That's how long the post is going to be visible. And you get 1 line of description and then the link text that's going to be there. There is also a COVID update post template that is added in. It's now available to use. that you can roll out some sort of COVID update. It shows up higher in your profile, but you don't want to use it because it's only text. You can't associate an image with it. And that COVID update post will hide all other active Google posts and past Google posts. So you don't want to use it. If you want to roll out a COVID update, use the what's new post template and put your information out there. When you're putting an image in your post, you can actually upload multiple images to the post. If you upload multiple images, they'll be displayed in a carousel and they can either swipe or click and drag through up to 10 images in that carousel. A lot of dealers have tried to tell a story. Here's, one picture of the front of the car, another picture of the back of the car that together as you're swiping looks like one whole picture. Or let's tell a story of I'm doing a walk around and it's in this order. But you got to realize the order is not retained. Google's going to change up the order for those posts. So you want to make sure that the images make sense in their own independent order, and it doesn't have to be one specific order. Now, when you're putting an image in for a post, the ideal size, the size you should be loading in, is 1200 by 900. It's a widescreen kind of format image, 1200 by 900. But Google's going to crop that for the thumbnail version of the image. So you want to make sure that text that's in your image or important elements, if there's an F-150 in the image, you don't want to cut out the whole bottom half of the truck and have it be a weird looking photo. So you want to be careful to not have things cropped out. But unfortunately, when you load the image in, cropping's really inconsistent and it's super wonky. So it's actually cropping slightly higher than vertical center. And it's weird. You can upload the same image and it'll crop it slightly differently every time. So it gets really frustrating if you're doing Google posts fairly often. So for better control of what's visible in the thumbnail, we've created a Photoshop guide. You can download the Photoshop document at bit.ly/posts-image-guide. Once you download that document, it's a Photoshop document. It's going to look like this. That's the 1200 by 900 dimension of the entire image. But you can see there, the white grid, that's what's cropped into a thumbnail. So the thumbnail is actually wider, more cropped in than what the full image is. So in the thumbnail, you'll see what's in the white grid. In the full image, you'll see the full image. So that way you have more control and you're sure that things don't get cropped out when you're uploading those images. So the thing that I said I wanted to get to, what we're going to finish up here at the end of this epic, almost 2-hour presentation, you've got to pay attention to the questions and answers section in Google My Business. The questions and answers section is a newer thing that showed up actually about 2 years ago at this point, but a lot of people still don't know about it, and it should terrify the living heck out of you. And here's why. It lets anyone, doesn't even have to be a local customer, anyone on the internet can ask a question to your dealership in the questions and answers section, and any random Yahoo online can answer that question for you. Think about that for a minute. Anybody can ask a question, but they're asking you, the dealership, the question, but any rando online could come in and answer it for you. That should terrify you. Even worse, customers that are asking those questions think that it's instant messaging, think that it's like a chat where they ask that question and there's somebody on the other end at the dealership paying attention that's going to pop an answer back to that person fairly quickly. But the questions and answers section is actually a widget to enable community discussion. So they're expecting an immediate answer from the dealership, when in reality, it's more of a community discussion feature. And even though it's been out for quite a while, most dealerships don't even know that it's there, because most dealerships are only interacting with their GMB listing inside of the GMB dashboard. The questions and answers bit is community discussion, and it's actually a feature of Google Maps that is displayed in your Google My Business profile. So the questions and answers section doesn't show up in the Google My Business dashboard, and that's why so many people don't know about it. And Google has a local guide program where you can get points for leaving reviews or editing maps or editing business information. And it's incentivized. You get points. It's gamified. So if you're really into the whole local guide thing, you approach it like a game and you want to get the most points possible. Google offers something like 4 or 5 points for every answer that you answer on a Q&A, which incentivizes all of the local guides to just go leave a bunch of answers to a lot of questions, which means there's a lot of really garbage answers to a lot of questions that are either pure nonsense or, somebody will say, what's the phone number of the dealership? And the answer will be like, go look at their website. It's on their website. like really just garbage, useless answers from local guides. So you want to pay attention and make sure that somebody's not asking a question and you're getting a ridiculous answer. Again, let's boil down to a really simple concept. This widget allows an online conversation to take place about your dealership. Are you really comfortable with just letting that conversation go and not even doing anything about it? No, you'd be crazy to think that way. You need to control the direction of that conversation. You need to control the impression that people get when they view that conversation. So you have to be paying attention to the Q&A section. And again, this isn't something that we're doing for rankings. The questions and answers content does not affect how you rank. So don't approach this from a, I need to do this to rank better in Google perspective. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because it is a conversion factor, kind of like the photos that we talked about earlier. The questions and answers section is really awesome for content research. And a lot of people don't really make that leap to think, oh, this is going to give me some really great ideas of stuff to put on my website, but it's awesome for that. So look at the questions that you're getting from customers. Now, most of the time, these customers are asking this question before they've been to your website. But sometimes, and we know people are coming to your website multiple times before they actually contact you. A lot of times, and somebody may have been to your site and they couldn't find the answer. So then they're asking that question in the questions and answers section. So you can look at these questions that are being asked, and that's going to give you ideas of, hey, I need to make sure either that this content is on my site, and maybe that person just didn't see it, or the content's on the site, but it's buried in a blog post from 2 years ago and nobody's going to know it's there. Or, oh, geez, I don't even have this answer on my website. I need to get it there. Really super pro level, advanced content research. Check out the questions that customers are asking other dealerships in town. Because if they're asking that question to your competitors, again, they're looking for the answer that that competitor probably doesn't have on their website. And we know that they're going to shop around and look at your site and your competitor's site. So if they're asking them that question, but then they get to your site and you've got a clear answer to that question, who do you think they're going to end up calling? And questions can get multiple answers. So when you see the list of questions, you'll see the question and one answer. That's what's called the primary answer. That primary answer is the answer that had the most upvotes, because you can give a thumbs up to questions that, or thumbs up to answers to questions that you like and you found useful. So you want to make sure that your answer as the dealership is upvoted the most so that your answer is always displayed as the primary answer. When you're answering questions, do not include the phone number to the dealership or a link to any page on your site. If your answer includes a phone number or a URL, it will most likely be filtered out by Google and not displayed. Now, here's the thing. You're not going to know that because you're going to be logged into your Google account, leaving that answer. And when you're coming back to look at it, you're going to see that answer there because you're logged into your account. But for the rest of the internet, they don't see that answer. So what you need to do is periodically, fairly often, you want to check your questions and answers section to see your answers, but be logged out of Google in an incognito browser window so that you will see what the rest of the public sees to make sure your answers are showing up. The really cool thing is you can load your own questions in. Now, this isn't something that I'm telling you to do that's like, here's a way to bend the rules. Google actually says in the documentation, it's a great place to share common questions that your business gets. We like to call it your pre-site FAQ page because remember, this is your first impression. It's Google My Business. A lot of times they haven't been to your site yet. We're doing this to get people to be more compelled to go to your site. So answering all of the potential questions they might have right there in the Q&A section is a really great way to do it. So upload all your own questions and then you can answer all your own questions. So also pro level, go look at questions that are being asked to your competitors. And if it makes sense to ask that same question on your own profile, ask that same question and answer it. Again, great way to stand apart from your competitors. And the really cool thing about questions and answers and why it's important to upload your own stuff, Google auto answers questions based on past answers. So if I come in and start to type in a new question, if somebody else has already asked that question in the past and that question's already been answered, or there's a review from a customer that answers that question, as I'm typing it, Google's going to auto-complete an answer over to the side. Or if I'm on mobile down below, Google's going to auto-complete an answer. So if I'm like, hey, what's your phone number to do this? It'll be like, oh, the phone number is blah, 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 blah. Or do you offer this? Yeah, they offer this. So it auto answers their question before they even submit the question, which is why it's important to get all those common questions in there. A lot of times I've had dealerships say, hey man, I want to get this question removed. Can I remove this question? And specifically too, a lot of times people will put reviews in this section because they're just clicking on the wrong thing to leave a customer review, and a customer review isn't a question. And you probably want to get rid of that. Or if it's just a statement, hey, these guys suck. It's not a question, it's just a statement. You can get those removed. The way to remove it is to the right of the question, there's 3 dots. So go mouse over the 3 dots, click on it, and select report. It's the only option. When you click report, you'll have options of why are you reporting this question. Pretty much you don't want to pick no longer applies. Pick anything else. Any of the other options other than no longer applies, usually it's removed within 24 hours. So it's really easy to get those questions removed. So here at the end, last fun little bit, because I got to end on a high note. And you want to see some scary examples? Like if you've seen this movie, that'd be this dude, scary examples, but they're also kind of funny. So I'll show you a couple fun ones here at the end. We see this all the time. Question, do you have a phone number? Notice I've blown this up on the screen, but the ask a question button that you have to click to ask this question is literally like 1.5 inches away on the screen from the phone number of your dealership, which they could either dial on their phone, or if they're on mobile, they could click on and call you. But we still get people that think it's messaging and they're lazy and they say, hey, do you have a phone number? Look at this. I had an Impala and it's overheated and I need to know what to do. This is a service lead. No answer from the dealership. You got to pay attention. And then this one, another one of those statement ones, but this dealership didn't remove it, but hey, your website sucks. And then somebody chimes in with an answer. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it either. And then somebody else gave that answer a thumbs up. That probably means that dealership has a not so great website. And then this one, I was doing a presentation for, at the time, FCA, now Stellantis, dealers in Austin, Texas. I always like to try to localize the results. So I just looked up some stuff in the area. The example I was giving here was, hey, does South Point have a body shop? This answer said, don't go here. Look at their reviews. That horrible experience. They lie to you. Not great for the dealership, right? But look, 6 more answers. If you click to look at the 6 more answers, the dealership answered. And whenever the dealership answers, it's always going to have the dealership name and then say owner. Obviously, this answer is a lot better. After the presentation, guy comes up to me and he's like, oh my gosh, man, like I work here. And I'm like, oh man, I wasn't trying to embarrass you. He's like, no, not embarrassed, but like, how do we fix this? What do we do? And I said, hey, we grabbed 3 people right there in the front row. We said, hey, log in on Google on your phone, go to this, look up South Point, blah, 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 go in, give a thumbs up to this dealership answer instead. And boom, immediately the dealership answer showed as the primary answer instead of the guy's jackhat answer. This one was for a conference I did in Boston a few years ago. I love this example. Somebody asked, how are the room numbers ordered? It's a big hotel. They're wondering how the room numbers are. And this guy, local guide, notice, pops in and says alphabetically. And you're probably laughing at that. It's kind of funny. And look at his little smug smile. He's super happy for his little kind of smug answer. But that's what I'm talking about. It's a local guide's answer that's not helpful. And as the hotel, that's the only answer. They didn't say, oh, yeah, it starts with 101 from the elevator and then it goes out from there. Like, it's not a helpful answer, and the hotel should be paying attention to this. This next one, it's my all-time favorite answer. This one has since been changed, but I still like to show this one because it's so darn funny. The guy thinks he's a comedian, so he's edited his answer. It's not as funny now, but this is for the London Eye, the big Ferris wheel right on the Thames River, downtown London. And the question is, do you have to wear a helmet? And the guy's answer is, you don't have to, but you can if you wish. I believe Viking helmets are a popular choice, which really funny. At the time, this used to be the Coca-Cola London Eye. Now it's the lastminute.com London Eye. But either way, they're not paying attention to this because that's kind of funny, but probably not the best first impression. And now the guy changed it to something like, yeah, you should wear a helmet. Like, I almost fell out twice, which you can't fall out. It's totally enclosed. Stupid answer, but whatever. What you need to do is load all of your own questions and do all of your own answers and upvote all your answers so that they're always primary. So it's a better pre-site FAQ experience, just like this. So I know that was a lot. Thank you so much for taking that crazy wild ride with me for the last 2 hours here. Hopefully I have given you the key to success so that you'll be able to get your dealership to show up better in more local searches. And now when you're thinking about SEO and your visibility in searches, you're not going to just want to go crazy and just jump off a cliff. So now you've got the answers, you know what to do. So get out there and win the race to the top of local search results. So That was the post-COVID guide to automotive SEO in 2021. Gain visibility and attract more local customers. There's my Twitter handle. If you guys use Twitter at all, every time I go to a conference, I always live tweet what the speakers are saying. And I'm at conferences all over the world. So it's a great way to stay up to date with the most cutting edge, awesome tips for SEO. And then there's my email address. I've got an open email policy. This isn't me trying to pitch you. I won't try to sell you anything. I just like to help people. That's why I do the Google My Business Forum. So open email policy. I will always answer you. It just might not be a super fast answer. So any questions you have about any of this, feel free to email me. You'll also be able to get the slides from Digital Dealer. And as always, at the end, I also include a list of all of the car movies by order of release date. So not only did you learn some awesome stuff about SEO, you got cool movies to watch. So thank you so much for watching this presentation, and I will see you at the next Digital Dealer. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching the presentation. Hopefully you'll learn some new stuff, or at least enjoyed seeing all the car movies. That's definitely all the time we've got left for today. So you know what that means. Put your hand on the screen right here. We totally just high-fived because you learned something awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Local Search Tuesdays.